rings of gold for it, and put them on its 4 feet, 2 rings on one side of it, and 2 rings on the other side of it. And you shall make poles of acacia wood, and overlay them with gold. And you shall put the poles into the rings on the sides of the ark to carry the ark by them. This is interesting, I think. The poles shall remain in the rings of the ark. They shall not be taken from it. And you shall put into the ark the testimony that I shall give you. You shall have a mercy seat of pure gold. 2 cubits and a half shall be its length, and 1.5 cubits its breadth. And you shall make 2 cherubim of gold. Of hammered work shall you make them. On the 2 ends of the mercy seat make 1 cherub on one end, and 1 cherub on the other end. Of one piece with the mercy seat shall you make the cherubim on its 2 ends. The cherubim shall spread out their wings above, overshadowing the mercy seat with its wings, their faces to one another. Toward the mercy seat shall the faces of the cherubim be. And you shall put the mercy seat on top of the ark, and in the ark you shall put the testimony that I shall give you. There I will meet with you, and from above the mercy seat, from between the 2 cherubim that are on the ark of the testimony, I will speak with you about all that I will give you in commandment of the people of Israel. Okay, so we're told it's built of wood, acacia wood. It's overlaid with pure gold inside and out, everywhere. Even the poles are overlaid with gold. I do think it's interesting that these poles, God says, they stay in. You don't take them out once you get it installed. They stay in. Maybe that's a little bit of foreshadowing, I think, about it's kind of always ready to go. I think we see that theme about being ready to go from the moment they leave the Exodus, right? That we have the Passover and they're ready to go. They get out the door. And obviously the tabernacle, right, is this mobile sort of temple. It's the same with the ark. It's kind of ready to go. And then we have this mercy seat. So what's the mercy seat? It's a cover, yep. And what's the purpose of it? Is it just a lid? Ooh, this man's seen Indiana Jones. I like it. No, separate man from the wrath of God. Absolutely, yeah. What else? What does God just tell us in what we just read? Where he meets with the people. He's going to sit, and you're going to meet with him. And I'm going to tell you the commandments that I have for you and for your people. All right, we're going to dig into this a little bit more, but we got to keep moving. So the contents of the ark. We get a real nice summary in Hebrews chapter 9. So we don't have to do much work if we're Christians, which is helpful. If you're Jewish, though, there's a little bit more speculation potentially. But Hebrews tells us that having the golden altar of incense and the Ark of the Covenant covered on all sides with gold, in which was the golden urn holding the manna, which was mentioned, Aaron's staff that budded, and the tablets of the covenant. In the Old Testament, obviously we have what we just read, which is you shall put into the ark the testimony that I shall give you. And then we have the actual instance when he does that in Exodus chapter 40. It says he took the testimony, he put it into the ark, and he put poles on the ark and set the mercy seat above the ark. And he brought the ark into the tabernacle and set up the veils of the screen and screened in the ark of the testimony as the Lord had commanded them. And then we have in Deuteronomy, keep in mind, there were some tablets, right, that were created and then they got destroyed. So round 2, right, that all is kind of happening throughout this as well. But the point is that the tablet, physical tablet commandments that God gave to the people are what they put inside the Ark of the Covenant. And we get that in Deuteronomy chapter 10. All right, so this golden pot of manna. We get this account in Exodus chapter 16. Let's jump over there real quick, actually. Starting in verse 33. So we are, again, if we put ourselves in the state, the mental state of these people, they've just, what was like the last big thing that happened prior to Exodus 16? Yes, and the Passover kicked off this big, I don't know what you want to call it, adventure that culminated, yeah, an Exodus. Yeah, you could call it, one might call it that. Yeah, it kicked off this big Exodus, but this big adventure that culminates with the crossing of the Red Sea and ultimately Pharaoh and the soldiers getting killed. And then we've got the Song of Moses, and then they're walking through the wilderness. They need water and they need food. They're coming from a place where, there's a lot of bickering between them, where it's like, oh man, maybe we should have stayed. We at least had food. We were slaves and we had to make bricks, but at least we had food. And so God is working on these people, again, same idea, that he's crafting their identity and saying, hey, your dependence no longer comes from the identity of slavery that you have. Your dependence comes from me. I will provide for you. I might not give you extra. I'm not going to give you too little. I'm going to give you exactly what you need. And we have this whole narrative where God says, hey, take what you need for the day. We get this manna that comes down from heaven. Take what you need for the day. Don't save any of it. If you do, it's going to spoil. That whole thing happens, and then we have Exodus 16:33. So let's read that real quick. Starting in verse 31, actually. Now the house of Israel called its name manna. It was like coriander seed, white, and the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. Moses said, this is what the Lord has commanded. Let an omer of it be kept throughout your generations, so that they may see the bread with which I fed you in the wilderness when I brought you out of the land of Egypt. And Moses said to Aaron, take a jar, put an omer of manna in it, and place it before the Lord to be kept throughout the generations. As the Lord commanded Moses, so Aaron placed it before the testimony to be kept. The people of Israel ate manna 40 years till they came to a habitable land. They ate the manna till they came to the border of the land of Canaan. So why would they save this pot of manna? This is the only time that they're allowed to save it. Why do you think they said to be saved? So it's remembered throughout your generations, kept throughout your generations. Why do you think that is that's the case? Yeah, we forget. They forgot multiple times. We'll see throughout the Old Testament. Yeah, we forget. It's a reminder that our dependence comes not from ourselves, not from our earthly leaders like Pharaoh. It comes from God. All right. Another cool one is Aaron's staff. This was mentioned, yeah. So, I'm sorry. Yeah, we've got a mic, yeah. Yes. Uh-oh. Listen, Larry.
Hang in there, Larry. So, did they ever open the ark?
Oh, man. I'll take a stab at it. They were allowed to open the ark. I don't think that it was said don't take the handles out, right? The handles are supposed to stay. But the mercy seat was designed in a way that it was mentioned it was a lid. So they could put things into the ark. I don't think that it was like, hey, we got to get all this stuff together and we have this one opportunity to put everything into the ark and it has to stay there. But I do think it was a process. And I think that anyone who was interacting with the ark, and we will see this in a minute, had to be in a good state of mind. And they had to be clean. They had to be ritually clean. And it had to be in a process and a formality that they understood what they were doing. They were, in some ways, interacting with the earthly throne of God. So to your question is, did they ever open the ark? Was that the question? I think probably is what I would say. I think that I don't know if they would get it out. Oh, I see what you're saying. And let me hold this jar of manna and remember what it was like. Yeah, I don't know. Not that I know of. Are there any references where it's like as part of a ceremony or something they would open it and hold it? I think the idea was a little more symbolic that this, the Ark of the Testimony, sometimes you'll also hear it. These tablets that they put in there, these are the testimony that God is giving the Israelites to say, this is how you are to be. These are the laws and commandments that I'm giving you. And the significance, I think, of things like the staff and the urn of manna putting that in front of the testimony, putting it with the testimony. In fact, even the language that it used for the manna was they put it with the testimony. It's more this idea of aligning everything to God's intentions, aligning everything to the laws and the commandments that God has given them. I know that didn't really answer your question, but I think probably they opened the Ark of the Covenant. Anyone else? Yeah. Yeah, I think I'd have to dig into 25 again, but I'm pretty sure the poles were mounted in the top corners, and then the mercy seat went on top. And so lift it, or, yeah, so you would lift it by the pole to carry it in its entirety. No. The lid you would lift off just by its, yeah. Yes. Here, I think that it is possible to touch the Ark of the Covenant. We're going to get there. It is possible to touch the Ark of the Covenant. Some people, when they touch it, bad things happen to them. But some people are able to touch it. We're going to get there. Anything else on did they open it? Let's show of hands. Let's take a vote. This will be fun. Do we think that after the items were put in there, it was never opened again? Let's see hands. All right, we've got some. Others say it was opened a handful of times. All right. This was probably more fun for me than it was for you, but all right. Never opened without consequences. Yeah, maybe. I do think we'll see sometimes as we get towards some of the more in David's life, they were opening it potentially in order to protect its contents sometimes, as military things were happening. But yeah, some sort of consequence probably. All right, Aaron's staff. We got to move on. So in Numbers chapter 17, we have this pretty cool kind of version of casting lots where they're trying to determine who the high priest is going to be. And so they say, all right, give me all your staffs. Moses says, give me all the staffs. And he collects all the staffs, and he puts them all into the tent of the testimony next to the ark. And then picking up in verse 8 here, on the next day Moses went into the tent of the testimony, and behold, the staff of Aaron. And they had marked all these staffs, so they knew whose was whose. The staff of Aaron for the house of Levi had sprouted forth and put forth buds and produced blossoms, and it bore ripe almonds. Then Moses brought out all the staffs from before the Lord to all the people of Israel, and they looked, and each man took his staff. And then the Lord said to Moses, put back the staff of Aaron before the testimony, to be kept as a sign for the rebels, that you may make an end to their grumblings against me, lest they die. And thus did Moses as the Lord had commanded him, so he did. And then Aaron obviously goes forward to become the first high priest. Okay, so some potentially missing items. So we are told, so by the time King Solomon builds the temple, the rod and the manna, the urn of manna, were no longer in the Ark of the Covenant. So we're not really told when they were explicitly taken out. Again, this is kind of what I'm saying. Maybe it wasn't like a super formal process. Perhaps they were lost during the years of the judges, or the runaround that the ark had with the Philistines, which we're going to get into. But we are told in 1 Kings chapter 8 that there was nothing in the ark except the 2 tablets of stone that Moses put there at Horeb, and then also in the Chronicles account, there was nothing in the ark except the 2 tablets that Moses put there at Horeb. Another one that is discussed sometimes, so in Deuteronomy chapter 31, when Moses kind of sits down and writes down this like law, in verse 26, some people think that usually in more Jewish, like rabbinic traditions, like they'll kind of speculate that the book of the law, the first book of the law that Moses wrote, physical book, was put into the ark, but not many scholars agree with that. This is often the verse that's used to kind of reference that in Deuteronomy 31:26. Take this book of the law and put it by the side of the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, that it may be there for a witness against you. Okay. Any comments? Any thoughts? We're gonna keep moving. Okay. So now I want to get into this. I can feel it in the room with the questions. There's some sort of, well, the ark has some sort of power, right? Do you touch it? Do you not touch it? We're kind of scared of it. We see the Israelites were kind of scared of it. What is that? What is that about? God? Yeah, they're did you say scared of God, or it's power of God? Yes, exactly. Power of God. Yeah. All right. So we're going to look into Uzziah dying here in a minute, but one of my favorite verses in 1 Samuel chapter 6, when they're talking about this ark, when they're first kind of bringing it, it says, who is able to stand before the Lord, this holy God? I think in order for us to understand the ark and the power that it contained, we really have to go to Exodus. We have to understand the connection that God had with the people and the connection that God had specifically with Moses. Who is able to stand before the Lord, this holy God? Anyone? Moses. Moses had a relationship with God that we will never see again in the Bible, barring obviously his son, but that doesn't count. Not only does he get to sit with God while he's on the mercy seat and hear and take down this testimony for whatever they're supposed to do while the ark is leading them through the wilderness, he also gets to physically see the back of God. Moses must have been one kind of dude. I think that's amazing. So the ark was it became this fundamental sacred identity of this nation. I think we will see that the Israelite people took that too far. They perhaps, we'll see, had too much faith in the ark and what it meant. But its purpose and the intent with God in designing it to be mobile, and you have these rods, you can carry it, it's ready to go. The purpose is God is saying to a people, I am going to dwell with you. I am going to come down and dwell with you. Let's turn to Exodus chapter 19. So I'm going to say this. I don't know when the last time was you guys read Exodus, like cover to cover. Highly recommend. It doesn't take too long, and it is riveting. In Exodus chapter 19, I want to look at this idea of God's power and the conduit that the ark was for God's power in a similar way that we see God interacting with the Israelites on Mount Sinai. So let's start in 19 verse 7. So Moses came and called the elders of the people and set before them all these words that the Lord had commanded him. All the people answered together and said, all that the Lord has spoken, we will do. They're all in. We'll do it. And Moses reported the words to the people to the Lord. And the Lord said to Moses, behold, I am coming to you in a thick cloud, that the people may hear when I speak with you and may also believe you forever. Oh, man. All right. We're going to keep going. When Moses told the words of the people to the Lord said to Moses, go to the people and consecrate them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their garments and be ready for the third day. For on the third day, the Lord will come down on Mount Sinai in the sight of all the people. And you shall set limits for the people all around, saying, take care not to go up into the mountain or touch the edge of it. Whoever touches the mountain shall be put to death. No hand shall touch him, but he shall be stoned or shot. Means he's going to die immediately. Whether beast or man, he shall not live. When the trumpet sounds a long blast, they shall come up to the mountain. So Moses went down from the mountain to the people and consecrated the people, and they washed their garments. And he said to the people, be ready for the third day. Do not go near a woman. So there's a couple things going on here. These people need to be in a state of ritual cleanliness. They need to be clean. Not, hey, let's wash all the germs off. We're talking clean before God. Another thing that I think is really interesting is there's this idea here where when God comes over in this cloud over Mount Sinai, it's electric. God cannot help but being powerful. And he's warning them, hey, when I'm over this mountain, like don't even touch the edge of it. Or what's going to happen? You will die, but it's going to be instant, like you were shot with an arrow. So do you think the people were like, all right, yeah, let's go. Hopefully between day 2 and day 3, it's ready and we can go up this mountain and everything's going to be fine. Right? There's this same idea with the ark. When God says, hey, this is my mercy seat and this is where I'm going to come down and sit and talk with you and give you the testimony and what we need to do. After this account, Mount Sinai, he gives them all the laws and what we read. He gave instructions to build not just the Ark of the Covenant, but also the tabernacle. What is the tabernacle? It's a tent. What do you do with tents? You move them. So God first reveals himself to this people so that they believe this raw power. I'm going to be there. I want them to hear me talking to you, Moses, so that they believe forever. But be careful. For 3 days, you've got to get clean. You've got to get right. You've got to get in a state where you will survive this. I think that is unbelievable. And so then we have the tabernacle. And similarly, this cloud would hover over the tabernacle, and people would come to their tents and see, oh, hey, God's here. He's talking to Moses in the tabernacle. This tabernacle can move. This Ark of the Covenant, it can move. This is how God is saying, me and my power, my raw power, you have access to it. But you've got to be in a right way. One more quick example of this kind of power I want to dig into real quick is Leviticus chapter 10. We'll go real quick into this, but this is Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihu, right? So we have that the whole wilderness era, and then we get into the Leviticus where we have specifics into the types of offerings and what things need to look like, and we're given this little kind of account in chapter 10, verse 1, where it seems like maybe they weren't listening super good. But something happens. So in verse 1, now Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, keep in mind this is the same Aaron, his staff budded, like he's the high priest, each took a censer and put fire on it, laid incense on it, and offered unauthorized fire before the Lord, which he had not commanded them. And the fire came out before the Lord and consumed them, and they died before the Lord. Then Moses said to Aaron, this is what the Lord has said, among those who are near me, I will be sanctified. Before all the people, I will be glorified. And Moses held his peace. So we could dig into this a lot. We're not going to. But it's a little bit of the same idea. There's almost something about God that he can't help but be what he is, the raw power that he is. And if you approach God in a way that you are not in a good state of mind or in a good heart, you can get got by God. There can be consequences. And we're going to see this as well with the ark. All right, I know that was a little tangent, and we got to hustle, but any comments before we move on? Okay. So we're going to breeze through this a little bit. So we've got the tabernacle at Sinai we had talked about, right? It's once the tabernacle is completed, Moses sets it all up. He puts it in there, puts the curtain in front of it. Then we have the wandering in the desert where the ark leads the people. But what's interesting is it's carried by a specific people, the Levites. And I think we all know, right? They're essentially the priest tribe. But this is Aaron. When Aaron's staff was selected by God, he was from the tribe of Levi. All the guys put their staffs in from different tribes, right? Aaron and the tribe of Levi stood out. This is important. God intended for the priests to have some level of ownership or connection with the ark, I think, that not everyone could have, that we'll see. So the question came up earlier, was it open? I think probably. I think probably this tribe, the Levites specifically, I think that they were kind of the handlers of the ark, right? They were consistently, ritually in a clean and pure state in order to do sacrifices, in order to really take anything to God on behalf of the people. Then we have a huge, I'm really sad we can't get into all this, but this is technically a class on Samuel and not on the Ark of the Covenant, but that might be a good class, I don't know. So they cross the Jordan River, they're heading towards the promised land, right? The priests' feet touch the water of Levi's, they're carrying the ark. And what happens? The river's like, all right, cool, parts, and they walk through. Then I just kind of put these all here in case people are curious, but lots of interactions with the ark that we see throughout. They carry it around Jericho, right, with 7 days before the wall falls as they're marching and blowing the trumpets. And then it's present for the reading of the law in Mount Gerizim. And then finally, the ark kind of gets to Shiloh, and it stays there for about 300 years during the period of the Judges. And then there's a brief mention that it ends up in Bethel, perhaps during like a civil war. They were potentially trying to protect the ark, so it ends up in Bethel. Where we're going to pick up and try to bring this to the life of David is towards at the beginning of 1 Samuel. We see this kind of shift in how people used the Ark of the Covenant. Whereas before, its purpose was for God to come and sit and dwell and tell you what to do, we see a shift where the people start to say, hey, you know what might be good to have in battle? The Ark of the Covenant. They start to use it more as this kind of totem to take into war. And I think that we see this is kind of what David would have kind of grown up with thinking about the ark, right? It's shifted. It's no longer this mobile Mount Sinai that they move around in order to experience God. It's more now, hey, God is with us and we're going to prove it because we've got this thing that can part water and let's like shove it, on the battlefield. But they pay for that. That strategy doesn't work out because we see in 1 Samuel chapter 4, oh man, we're not going to get done. 1 Samuel chapter 4, we'll go over this quickly. What happens? What happens to the ark? They take it into battle with the Philistines. And what happens? I heard some of it, I think. They lose it. The Philistines capture the ark. They had taken it out. It wasn't going well. Hophni and Phinehas, Eli's sons, are killed. The Philistines get the ark. They take it. Is God still near the ark? Yeah. So it's still a conduit of God's power, but it depends on whether or not it's in the right hands, it seems. So Eli learns of this. He learns that his sons die. He's fine. The next word, he learns that the ark is in Philistine hands. He falls over dead. One thing that I think is kind of cool, I saw too, the name of I think it's his grandson, Ichabod, means glory in exile. And that is essentially the ark. This conduit of God's glory is exiled. There's also some play on words there when Eli dies around his weight, and the word for weight in Hebrew sounds very, very similar to the word for glory that's used often to talk about the ark. But we don't have time to get into that. So, so God flexes his muscles in Philistia a little bit. God's power, the ark is still serving as a conduit for God's power. It's placed in the temple of Dagon. I'm going to breeze through this, but go read it. It's really interesting. The next morning they come up, the idol of Dagon, its head fell over, and it broke. If that wasn't enough, they all start to get tumors. And so then they make these tumors of gold to send as like a mercy offering. Say, hey, make this stop. Oh, by the way, you can take your ark back. We don't want it anymore. So then we are finally, this whole part was my intro. This is what we wanted to get to. 2 Samuel chapter 6. This is the spicy part that I feel like people care about anyways. So chapter 6, verse 1. We talked about, the strategies that David used in selecting his capital a couple weeks ago. He's got his capital. Now he thinks, hey, let's get the ark here, right? It should be here. This should kind of solidify things, right? The conduit of God's power should probably be with us. Later, we'll see Solomon, David's son, when he finishes the temple, he puts it in the temple, in the Holy of Holies in the temple. And that's where it sits until, until we lose it forever. But 2 Samuel chapter 6, I want to talk about this account with Uzzah. So they go and get the ark. Starting in verse 1 of chapter 6, David again gathered all the chosen men of Israel, 30,000, and David arose and went with all the people who were with him to Baale, Judah, to bring up from there the ark of God, which is called by the name of the Lord of hosts, who sits enthroned on the cherubim. So God is still very much on the ark for these people. And they carried the ark of God on a new cart and brought it out of the house of Abinadab, who was on the hill. And Uzzah and Ahio, the sons of Abinadab, were driving the new cart with the ark of God. And Ahio went before the ark. And David and all the house of Israel were celebrating before the Lord with songs and lyres and harps and tambourines and cymbals. And when they came to the threshing floor of Nacon, Uzzah put out his hand to the ark of God and took hold of it, for the oxen stumbled. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Uzzah, and God struck him down there because of his error. And he died there beside the ark of God. And David was angry because the Lord had broken out against Uzzah, and that place is called Perez Uzzah to this day. And David was afraid of the Lord that day, and he said, how can the ark of the Lord come to me? So he was not willing to take the ark to the city of David, but he left it at Obed's house. Obed-Edom, the Gittite, had the ark for 3 months. And he was blessed. I guess I'll just finish the verse. And the ark of the Lord remained at the house of Obed-Edom, the Gittite, for 3 months. And the Lord blessed Obed, and all of his household. So it's still the conduit of God's glory. What determines whether or not you get blessings or you die? What I want to dig into here is similar to the Mount Sinai, where it's like, hey, don't touch it. God's power is here. You will die. That's the same kind of power that just killed Uzzah. I remember from when I was a kid onward, I always wondered, what? Does this not seem super unfair? You can't win. What if Uzzah doesn't do anything and the ark hits the ground? It's made of wood. It's encased in gold. Do you think God would have killed all of them? Maybe I'm the only one that ever wondered this. I thought Uzzah got a bad deal. Yeah.
Fall or hit something that's an accident, and we fall into something and something breaks. We weren't intentionally trying to do that. And so God knows our hearts. It always is about the heart. So why was he so hard on him? I don't understand that.
I don't know.
God, I don't get it. Please tell me.
I'm with you. It's really hard, especially this verse. It says that God's anger burned against Uzzah. That verse throws me for a loop sometimes. But I personally take a little bit of comfort in this idea of God's raw power that you have to protect yourself from in some way. It's not necessarily just the state of his heart. We don't know much about Uzzah, who knows? But there's something else. We're given a slight clue. There was a mistake that they made. And that mistake is that they were treating the ark and they were carrying it around in the same way that the Philistines did. At the beginning of that we read, it said that they put it on a new cart. And they were carrying the ark on a cart and bringing it into town. I'm not saying this is Uzzah's fault specifically. I think the people, the elders of Israel, I think David, all had kind of a part to play with this. But who was supposed to be carrying the ark? Yeah, we've got a comment up here at Richard. Who was supposed to be carrying the ark? The Levites. David wanted to bring the ark to solidify his capital. His motives maybe weren't the best. So he just said, hey, go get it. Let's go get it. Let's bring it here. Rather than somewhat of a transformation of the people to say, hey, let's get back right with the way God intended here. Did you? Oh, sorry. I was trying to use my time while the mic was coming, but yeah, here we go.
I think the point is that God means what he says, and he does, to be a God that is just, he has to be exact. He can't vary on things like that. When he says, if you touch the ark, you're going to die. Over in 1 Samuel 6, over 57,000 Philistines died.
Yeah.
Because they looked into the ark.
Yeah.
And they got tumors. Or
they were not
or whatever
clean.
They were. But I mean, bad things happen when you violate what God says. And the question might be asked is, how did they get the ark on the cart?
Yeah.
Well, they did it by the prescribed way. They put it on there by handling the poles, which kept them from handling the ark. And if they'd just done that, David knew that. The people knew that.
They all should have known that.
Yeah, and so that was their mistake, is that they violated how God told them to do things. Just like Nadab and Abihu, they were told, here's what I expect in terms of fire, and anything strange, there's going to be a price for that.
Yep.
So in order for God to be just, he has to mean what he says, and there has to be consequences when you violate what he means, which makes the mercy seat even that much more important.
Yeah.
The mercy seat and Christ entering into the holy place and sitting on the mercy seat.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I know I said I wasn't going to do an application, but I'm going to try real quick. And that's kind of exactly what Richard was saying, right? So after this, the ark eventually disappears. We don't know. Maybe people have it. Maybe it's buried in some tunnel. Who knows? There's people out there devoting their entire lives to finding the Ark of the Covenant. Good for them. Let me tell you, though, as Christians, we don't need the Ark of the Covenant. The conduit for God's power lives in us now through Jesus, just like Richard was saying. Who sits on the mercy seat now? It's Jesus. Jeremiah kind of gives a prophecy in chapter 3 where he's kind of saying there will come a time where you don't need the Ark of the Covenant anymore. And it's exactly that. It's because Jesus is now the conduit. He sits on the mercy seat. But what's more, that power lives in us through the Holy Spirit. So I know I kind of went on this tangent with this whole Mount Sinai thing, but that raw power that would have killed them if they mishandled it, that killed Nadab and Abihu, that gave tumors to the people when they opened, that raw power, it lives in us. We have access to it. That is pretty cool. All right, well, I appreciate you guys with this little bottle episode. Thank you for your attention. Next week, we'll be kind of getting back on track with Samuel, and we'll be looking at some of the Psalms, and then Jake will teach 1 week and finish us off. Thank you.